The betrayal and the miracle. The crystalline spires of New Geneva glittered in the morning sunlight, their iridescent surfaces refracting rainbows across the bustling streets below. Today marked humanity's 50th year in the Galactic Council, and Earth was determined to put on a show that would be remembered for centuries to come. Dr. Samantha Chen stood at the window of her laboratory, her dark eyes reflecting the dazzling cityscape. At 45, she was Earth's leading expert in xenotechnology, responsible for many of the advancements that had propelled humanity to its current standing in the galactic community. Yet, as she watched the final preparations for the celebration, a nagging sense of unease gnawed at the pit of her stomach. "Dr. Chen." A hesitant voice broke through her reverie. "The final diagnostics are complete." Samantha turned to face her assistant, a young Arcturian named Zix. The alien's translucent skin shimmered with anxiety, all four of its eyes blinking rapidly. "And?" Samantha prompted, her voice steady despite the tension coiling within her. Zix's tendrils writhed in what Samantha had learned was an expression of confusion. "It's operational, Doctor, but I still don't understand why we've built it. The Council has brought peace to the galaxy. Why would Earth need a planetary shield?" Samantha's lips tightened into a thin line. "Insurance, Zix. Just insurance." Before she could elaborate, a thunderous roar filled the air. The celebration had begun. Massive holograms flickered to life across the sky, displaying scenes from Earth's journey to the stars. Samantha watched as the images shifted from the first lunar colonies to the breakthrough in faster-than-light travel, and finally the momentous day when humanity was welcomed into the Galactic Council. As the crowd's cheers reached a crescendo, a fleet of sleek, silver ships descended from the clouds. The Council's ceremonial armada, here to pay tribute to Earth's achievements. Samantha felt her unease grow as she counted the vessels. There were far more than protocol dictated. "Zix," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "initiate Protocol Omega." Now. The Arcturian's skin paled to an almost translucent white. "But Doctor," that wooled. The rest of Zix's protest was drowned out by an earth-shattering explosion. Samantha watched in horror as the Lid Council ship opened fire on the gathered crowd below. In an instant, the celebrations turned to chaos. "Now, ZX," Samantha screamed, already sprinting towards the main control panel. Her fingers flew across the haptic interface, entering override codes and bypassing safety protocols. Outside, the scene had devolved into apocalyptic chaos. Council ships rained death from above, their energy weapons carving swaths of destruction through New Geneva's once pristine streets. The sickening screech of tearing metal filled the air as buildings crumbled, their advanced alloys no match for the Council's weaponry. Samantha's mind raced as she worked. Why? Why would the Council turn on them now, after 50 years of peaceful cooperation? Had it all been a ruse, a long con to lull Earth into a false sense of security? The violent tremor shook the laboratory, causing Samantha to stumble. She caught herself on the edge of the console, her eyes locking onto the main view screen. The casualty numbers were scrolling past at a sickening rate, millions dead already, and the attack had barely begun. "Doctor," Zix called out, his voice strained with panic. "The shield generators are overloading. They weren't designed to activate all at once." Samantha gritted her teeth. "Reroute all power from the city grid. Shut down everything if you have to. We need that shield." As Zix worked feverishly to comply, Samantha allowed herself a moment of grim satisfaction. Her paranoia, the endless nights spent designing and building a planetary defense system in secret, it hadn't been for nothing. If only she'd been wrong. The laboratory shuddered again, and Samantha heard the ominous groan of stressed metal above them. "Status, Zix. Power rerouted. Shield at 67% capacity and rising." It would have to be enough. Samantha took a deep breath and placed her palm on the activation scanner. Initiating planetary shield in 3, 2, 1. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sound like 1,000 thunderclaps, A shimmering blue energy field burst from emitters hidden across the globe. It expanded rapidly, enveloping the entire planet in a protective cocoon. The effect was immediate. Council weaponry splashed harmlessly against the shield, their deadly energy dissipating in spectacular auroral displays. Samantha allowed herself a small smile of triumph, but it was short-lived. "Doctor," Zix's voice was filled with awe and terror in equal measure. "The shield. It's not just stopping their weapons. It's blocking all interstellar travel. We're cut off from the rest of the galaxy." Samantha's blood ran cold. It was an unintended consequence, but one that made brutal sense. The shield was designed to protect Earth from any and all external threats. That included preventing hostile forces from landing, or anyone from leaving. She watched as the Council ships, thwarted in their attack, began to pull back. Earth was safe for now, but at what cost? They were trapped, isolated from the very stars they had worked so hard to reach. As the adrenaline of the moment began to fade, the full weight of what had transpired crashed down on Samantha. Millions dead, Earth's greatest cities in ruins, and the galaxy they thought they knew revealed as a deadly illusion. "Zix," she said, her voice hoarse, "send out an emergency broadcast. All channels, all languages. Tell them Earth is under attack. The Galactic Council has betrayed us. But we are not defeated." As Zix hurried to comply, Samantha turned her gaze back to the window. The once beautiful skyline of New Geneva was now a hellscape of smoke and ruins. But beyond it, visible even through the shimmer of the shield, the stars still shone. In that moment, Dr. Samantha Chen made a vow. Earth would survive. Humanity would endure. And one day, they would return to those stars not as wide-eyed newcomers, but as a force to be reckoned with. The Council had made a grave mistake. They should have killed us all, she thought grimly. Because now, they've given us a reason to show them exactly what humanity is capable of when pushed too far. The next few hours passed in a blur of emergency protocols and damage assessments. Samantha worked tirelessly, coordinating with what remained of Earth's leadership to establish a global crisis response. The shield had saved billions of lives, but the devastation was still catastrophic. As the first day under siege drew to a close, Samantha finally allowed herself a moment of rest. She slumped in her chair, the weight of responsibility pressing down on her like a physical force. "Doctor," Zix approached cautiously, "you should see this." The Arcturian pulled up a holographic display, showing scenes from around the world. Samantha expected to see more images of destruction and despair. Instead, what she saw took her breath away. In the ruins of cities across the globe, humans were coming together. Strangers were pulling survivors from rubble, setting up makeshift medical stations, sharing what little food and water they had. In New York, a group had rigged up an enormous screen in Times Square, displaying a simple message in dozens of languages. "We stand united." Samantha felt a lump form in her throat. This was humanity at its best, defiant in the face of overwhelming odds. "They underestimated us, Zix," she said softly. "The Council thought this would break us. Instead, it's only made us stronger." As if in response to her words, a new message flashed across the global emergency channel. It was from the International Space Station, somehow still intact above the shield. "To all survivors on Earth, we see you. We stand with you. The stars may be beyond our reach for now, but make no mistake, this is not the end. It's only the beginning. Humanity will rise again, and when we do, the galaxy will tremble." Samantha felt a fierce pride swell in her chest. Yes, she thought, the real fight starts now. And God help the Council when humanity pushes back. Dr. Samantha Chen stood in the command center of New Geneva's underground city, her eyes fixed on the massive display screens that dominated the far wall. Each screen showed a different part of Earth's surface, once great cities now reduced to rubble, vast swathes of scorched Earth, and the ever-present shimmer of the planetary shield that both protected and imprisoned them. "Status report," she called out, her voice carrying the weight of command that 5 years of leadership had instilled in her. A young lieutenant approached, tablet in hand. Shield integrity holding at 98%, Dr. Chen. Council ships continue their weekly bombardment, but they're not even scratching the surface anymore. Samantha nodded, a grim smile playing at the corners of her mouth. The Council's persistent attacks had become almost routine, a reminder of humanity's precarious position, but also a testament to their resilience. "And our latest project?" she asked, turning to face the bustling room full of engineers and scientists. The lieutenant's eyes lit up. "Project Phoenix is ahead of schedule. The first intercontinental maglev tunnel should be operational within the month. It'll connect New Geneva to the Asian Alliance's bunker cities." "Excellent," Samantha said. "The faster we can move resources and personnel around the globe, the stronger our position becomes." As she turned back to the screens, a sudden commotion erupted from the communication station. "Dr. Chen," a technician called out, his voice tinged with urgency. "We're picking up an unidentified object entering the atmosphere." Samantha's heart raced as she rushed to the station. For 5 years, the shield had kept everything out. Council ships, debris, even stray asteroids. Nothing had made it through. Until now. "On screen," she ordered, and the main display switched to a live feed from one of their few remaining satellites. A ball of fire was streaking across the sky, leaving a trail of smoke in its wake. As it descended, its shape became clearer. It was a ship, but unlike any council vessel they'd seen before. "It's going to crash in the Australian outback," the technician reported. "Impact in 30 seconds. Samantha watched, her mind racing. This could be a new council weapon designed to penetrate their defenses, or it could be something else entirely. Either way, they needed to know. "Get me General Okafor," she said. "We need a recon team at that crash site yesterday." Hours later, Samantha stood in a sealed quarantine chamber, face to face with something she'd never thought she'd see again. An alien, but not one from any species recognized by the Galactic Council. The creature was humanoid, but its skin was a deep purple, with bioluminescent patterns pulsing beneath the surface. 4 arms emerged from its torso, and its large, almond-shaped eyes blinked vertically. "Can you understand me?" Samantha asked, her voice calm despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The alien nodded slowly, then spoke. Its voice was melodic, almost musical. "Yes. Universal translator. Functioning." Samantha leaned forward. "Who are you? Where do you come from?" "I am Zura," the alien replied. "Last survivor of the Luminary. And like you, I am a refugee from the Council's genocide." The word hit Samantha like a physical blow. Genocide. So Earth hadn't been the only target. "Tell me everything," she said. Over the next few hours, Zura painted a picture that was both terrifying and infuriating. The Luminary had been a peaceful, technologically advanced civilization. Like humanity, they had been invited to join the Galactic Council. And like humanity, they had been betrayed. But why? Samantha asked, her fists clenched at her sides. Why destroy civilizations they invited to join them? Zara's bioluminescent patterns flickered in what Samantha interpreted as sadness. "We learned too late. The Council, it is not what it seems. The public face, the one that welcomes new species, is a facade. Behind it lies an ancient, corrupt core. They fear potential. Potential. Species like yours, like mine," Zora explained. "Those with the capacity for rapid advancement. They see us as threats to their power, so they eliminate us before we can challenge them." Samantha felt a cold fury building inside her. All those lives lost, all that potential snuffed out, because of fear and greed. "How did you escape?" she asked. "A small group of us managed to steal a ship," Zora said. "We've been searching for other survivors, other victims of the Council. We found evidence of more massacres, more betrayals. But your world, your shield, it's unique. You're the only ones who've successfully resisted. Samantha's mind was reeling. They weren't alone. There were other survivors out there. Other species who had suffered as they had. And Earth, against all odds, had become a beacon of hope. "Zara," she said, her voice filled with newfound determination, "I think this is the beginning of a very important alliance." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Zara's ship, though damaged, was a treasure trove of advanced technology. Luminary faster-than-light drives, energy weapons that could penetrate council shields, and communication arrays capable of piercing the planetary barrier without compromising it. But more valuable than any of that was the knowledge Zora brought. Maps of council space, weaknesses in their defenses, and most importantly, the location of other resistance movements across the galaxy. In a secure bunker deep beneath what was once the Sahara Desert, Samantha stood before the leaders of Earth's unified government. The holographic displays showed Zora's information, a galaxy of possibilities they had thought lost forever. "Ladies and gentlemen," Samantha began, her voice steady and determined. "For 5 years, we've been trapped on our own world, fighting for survival. We've made incredible strides. Our underground cities now house billions. Our technology has advanced by leaps and bounds. But we've been reactive, focused solely on defense." She paused, looking each leader in the eye. "Today, that changes. Today, we stop simply surviving. Today, we start planning our return to the stars." The room erupted in murmurs. Samantha raised a hand for silence. "I know it sounds impossible. The shield that protects us also imprisons us. But with the luminary technology, we can create small gaps large enough to let ships through, but too small for the Council to exploit." She tapped a control, and the display changed to show designs for a new type of vessel. "I present to you Project Prometheus, a ship capable of interstellar travel, armed with weapons that can challenge the Council, and crewed by the best Earth has to offer." "And what would be the purpose of this ship, Dr. Chen?" the president of the African Union asked, leaning forward in her seat. Samantha's eyes blazed with purpose: to make contact with other resistance movements, to gather allies, resources, and intelligence, and ultimately, to take the fight back to the Council. The Chinese premier spoke up next. "And you believe we're ready for this, to face an enemy that nearly destroyed us 5 years ago." 5 years ago, we were unprepared, Samantha countered. "We were naive. Now we have the knowledge, the technology, and the motivation. We've spent 5 years preparing for a fight we thought might never come. It's time to take that fight to them." The room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. It was the American president who finally broke the silence. "Even if we agree to this, how can we be sure other species will ally with us? We're unknown, untested." Samantha smiled. "That's where we have an advantage. Thanks to Zara, we know where to find those who've suffered as we have. And more importantly, we have something no one else in the galaxy has, a way to shield entire planets from the Council's attacks." She let that sink in for a moment before continuing. "Imagine a network of shielded worlds, each one a bastion of resistance. Imagine a fleet of ships, crewed by the survivors of a dozen massacred species, all united against the Council's tyranny." Samantha's voice rose, filled with passion and conviction. 5 years ago, the Council tried to wipe us out. They failed. In doing so, they created something they never intended. They forged humanity into a weapon honed by adversity, tempered by determination, and now aimed straight at the heart of their corrupt empire. She looked around the room, seeing the spark of hope, of defiance, growing in the eyes of Earth's leaders. The Council thought they were ending a threat. Instead, they've created their worst nightmare. It's time to show them exactly what humanity is capable of. It's time to take back our place in the stars. As murmurs of agreement filled the room, Samantha allowed herself a small, fierce smile. The real war, she knew, was just beginning. But for the first time in 5 long years, the future held more than just survival. It held the promise of victory. The Prometheus hung in space, a sleek dagger of hope against the vast, star-studded backdrop. From her position on the bridge, Dr. Samantha Chen watched as the last of the supply shuttles docked with the ship. After months of preparation, years of planning, it was finally time. "Final systems check," she ordered, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "All systems green," Doctor, replied Commander Jack Harper, his hands dancing over the holographic controls. "Stealth systems are online and functioning at 100% efficiency." Samantha nodded, allowing herself a small smile. The luminary cloaking technology, combined with human ingenuity, had produced a vessel that was virtually undetectable. It was their key to slipping past the Council's blockade. "Zara," she called out, turning to where the luminary sat at the science station. "Are you picking up any Council activity?" Zara's bioluminescent patterns pulsed softly as she checked her readings. "Negative, Samantha. The Council fleet maintains its standard patrol pattern around the shield perimeter." "Good," Samantha said. "Then it's time. Jack, initiate Operation Wooden Horse." As Harper began the launch sequence, Samantha's mind wandered back to the heated debates that had led to this moment. Some had argued for a direct assault on the Council ships, to break the blockade by force. Others had pushed for a purely diplomatic mission, seeking out allies before engaging the enemy. In the end, Samantha's plan had won out. A daring infiltration of the Council's main fleet, gathering intelligence, and potentially sabotaging their operations from within. It was risky, but if successful, it could turn the tide of the war before it even properly began. The ship shuddered slightly as it passed through the carefully calculated gap in Earth's planetary shield. For a heart-stopping moment, Samantha feared they'd be spotted. But the seconds ticked by, and no alarm sounded. "We're clear," Harper announced, a note of disbelief in his voice. "We've done it. We're past the blockade." A cheer went up from the crew, quickly hushed as they remembered the need for absolute silence. Samantha allowed the celebration for a moment before bringing them back to focus. "Well done, everyone," she said. "But remember, this is just the beginning. Set course for the Arcturus system. That's where we'll find the Council's main fleet." As the Prometheus leaped into FTL, leaving the solar system for the first time in 5 years, Samantha felt a mix of exhilaration and trepidation. They were bringing the fight to the enemy at last, but the true challenges were yet to come. The journey to Arcturus took 3 days, during which the crew drilled constantly on their infiltration procedures. The plan was audacious. Using salvaged parts from Zara's ship and the advanced manufacturing capabilities of the Prometheus, they had constructed a near-perfect replica of a Council vessel's outer hull. Once in the Arcturus system, they would cloak the Prometheus, eject the fake hull, and appear to be a damaged Council ship limping home for repairs. As they dropped out of FTL on the outskirts of the Arcturus system, Samantha addressed the crew one final time. "What we're about to do has never been attempted," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the ship. "We're about to infiltrate the heart of the organization that tried to wipe us out. The risks are enormous, but so are the potential rewards. If we succeed, we'll have struck a blow for every species the Council has ever betrayed." She paused, looking each crew member in the eye. "You're the best Earth has to offer. You've trained for this, prepared for this. I have faith in each and every one of you. Now let's show the Council exactly what humanity is capable of." With a chorus of affirmatives, the crew sprang into action. The fake hull was ejected, the Prometheus cloaked, and they began their approach to the massive Council fleet that hung in orbit around Arcturus IV. Everything was going according to plan. Too well, Samantha thought, a nagging sense of unease growing in the pit of her stomach. As they neared the fleet, a Council battlecruiser hailed them. Harper, disguised as a Council officer, answered the call. "Vessel CTN 2811, you are not scheduled for return," came the stern voice of the Council commander. "Explain your presence." Harper delivered their prepared story flawlessly, describing a malfunction that had forced them to cut their patrol short. For a moment, it seemed the ruse had worked. Then, suddenly, alarms blared throughout the Prometheus. "We're being scanned," Zara cried out, her bioluminescence flashing in panic. Before Samantha could react, the view screen filled with the sneering face of a human man. Her blood ran cold as she recognized him. Admiral Marcus Blackwood, once Earth's representative to the Council, now apparently a traitor. "Did you really think it would be that easy, Dr. Chen?" Blackwood's voice dripped with contempt. "That you could just waltz into the heart of Council space undetected?" Samantha's mind raced. How had he known? How had they been detected? Then, with a sickening realization, she understood. "You knew we were coming," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You've been feeding us information through Zora." Blackwood's smirk widened. "Very good, Doctor. Yes, we've known about your little resistance movement for quite some time. The Luminary escape pod, the conveniently detailed intelligence, all of it orchestrated to lead you right into our hands." Samantha turned to Zara, expecting to see guilt or defiance. Instead, she saw only confusion and fear in the alien's eyes. "Samantha, I didn't know. I swear it." "Oh, she's telling the truth," Blackwood interjected. "Poor Zara was as much a pawn as the rest of you. Intercepted, implanted with false memories, and a subconscious beacon. The perfect Trojan horse." The bridge erupted into chaos. Security officers moved to restrain Zara, while others frantically tried to bring weapons systems online. But Samantha knew it was too late. They were surrounded, outgunned, and out of options. Or were they? As Council ships moved to surround the Prometheus, a plan began to form in Samantha's mind. It was desperate, probably suicidal, but it was the only chance they had. "Harper," she said, her voice cutting through the panic on the bridge, "plot a collision course with Blackwood's ship. Full speed." Harper's eyes widened in shock, but he nodded, understanding dawning on his face. "Aye, Doctor." Collision course plotted. Samantha opened a channel to the entire ship. "All hands, this is Dr. Chen. Prepare for emergency protocols. We're not going down without a fight." She turned back to the view screen, where Blackwood's smug expression had been replaced by one of confusion. "What are you doing, Chen? You're surrounded. Surrender now, and perhaps the Council will show mercy." Samantha allowed herself a grim smile. "You know, Admiral, you really should have paid more attention during those briefings on human history. You might have learned an important lesson. Never corner a human. We tend to do crazy things." With that, she cut the transmission. "Harper, on my mark, I want you to divert all power to the Luminary drive. We're going to jump into the heart of Blackwood's ship." "But Doctor," Zara interjected, her voice shaking, "the probability of survival is—" "Never tell me the odds," Samantha interrupted. "Everyone, brace for impact. Harper, now." The Prometheus lurched forward, its experimental drive screaming as it was pushed beyond its designed limits. For a moment, Samantha saw the look of dawning horror on Blackwood's face as he realized what they were doing. Then, with a flash of blinding light and a sound like reality itself tearing apart, the Prometheus vanished, only to reappear an instant later, half-materialized inside the Council flagship. The resulting explosion was spectacular, tearing both ships apart and sending a shockwave through the Council fleet. In the chaotic aftermath, as Council ships scrambled to respond to the unexpected attack, a single escape pod jettisoned from the wreckage of the Prometheus. Inside, a battered but alive Samantha Chen looked out at the stars, a fierce determination in her eyes. They had lost the battle, but in doing so, they had struck the first real blow against the Council. More importantly, they had sent a message to the galaxy. Humanity would not go quietly into the night. They would fight, they would survive, and they would win. As the escape pod streaked away from the battlefield, Samantha allowed herself a moment of grief for the brave crew she had lost. Then she turned her mind to the future. This was just the beginning. The real war was about to begin. The escape pod drifted through the inky void of space, its lone occupant lost in thought. Dr. Samantha Chen had been adrift for what felt like an eternity, the events of the past few days replaying in her mind like a nightmarish loop. The betrayal, the destruction of the Prometheus, the loss of her crew. It all weighed heavily on her conscience. But there was something else, a nagging feeling that they were missing a crucial piece of the puzzle. Why had the Council gone to such elaborate lengths to lure them out? Why not simply destroy Earth when they had the chance? As if in answer to her unspoken questions, the pod's communication system crackled to life. A familiar voice, distorted by static, filled the tiny cabin. "Dr. Chen, do you read me? This is Harper. Please respond." Samantha's heart leaped. "Harper, is that really you? How did you survive?" No time to explain. Harper's voice was urgent. "I'm transmitting coordinates to you now. There's something you need to see." Before Samantha could respond, the pod's navigation system beeped, indicating the receipt of new coordinates. They weren't far. A small, uncharted moon, orbiting a gas giant in a nearby system. With nothing to lose, Samantha set the course. As the pod's engines flared to life, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was on the verge of uncovering something monumental. Hours later, the pod touched down on the barren, rocky surface of the moon. As Samantha stepped out, the sight that greeted her took her breath away. A massive structure, clearly artificial and definitely not of Council origin, loomed before her. Its architecture was alien, unsettling. All twisting spires and non-Euclidean angles that hurt the eyes to look at directly. "Impressive, isn't it?" Harper's voice came from behind her. Samantha turned to see her former second-in-command approaching, his environmental suit marked with scorch marks and hastily patched tears. "Harper, what is this place? How did you find it?" Harper's expression was grim behind his faceplate. "After the explosion, I managed to access some of the Council's most classified files before escaping. This place, it's some kind of monitoring station. And what it's monitoring, Doctor, that's why I called you here." He led her into the structure, through corridors that seemed to bend and twist in impossible ways. Finally, they entered what appeared to be a control room. Harper activated a holographic display, and Samantha felt her blood run cold. The image showed the Milky Way galaxy, but not as she had ever seen it before. Vast, tentacle-like structures were creeping in from the edges, slowly encroaching on the spiral arms. "What am I looking at, Harper?" Samantha asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "The real reason behind the Council's actions," Harper replied. "They call them the Void Eaters, ancient, cosmic entities from beyond our universe. And they're coming." Over the next hour, Harper laid out the terrifying truth he had uncovered. The Void Eaters were eldritch abominations of unimaginable power, existing in dimensions beyond human comprehension. They consumed entire galaxies, breaking down the very fabric of reality as they fed. The Council, Harper explained, has known about them for millennia. Their entire civilization, their technology, it's all been built around preparing for this invasion. Samantha's mind reeled. But the massacres, the betrayals, how does that help against something like this? Harper's laugh was bitter. "That's the kicker, isn't it? The Council believes that only certain species have the potential to reach a level of technological and psychological development necessary to combat the Void Eaters. Every other species, they're just fodder." "Fodder?" Samantha echoed, not wanting to believe what she was hearing. "Resources," Harper clarified. "The Council has been culling species, using their combined life energy and technology to power massive weapons platforms. They believe it's the only way to stand a chance against the cosmic horrors that are coming." Samantha felt sick. The scale of the atrocity was beyond anything she had imagined. Entire civilizations, snuffed out to fuel a war against an enemy they would never even know existed. "But why target us?" she asked. "Why Earth?" Harper's expression was pained. Because we scared them, Samantha. Our rate of technological advancement, our adaptability, our sheer stubborn refusal to give up. The council saw all of that and realized we might actually have a chance of surviving what's coming. And that terrified them. So they tried to wipe us out, Samantha concluded. Better to use us as fuel for their weapons than risk us finding out the truth and potentially disrupting their plans. Harper nodded. Exactly. But they underestimated us. The planetary shield, the Prometheus. We've consistently surprised them. And now we know what we're really up against. Samantha turned back to the holographic display, watching the creeping tendrils of the Void Eaters inch closer to the galaxy she called home. The weight of this new knowledge pressed down on her, threatening to crush her spirit. But then something inside her shifted. A spark of the same defiance that had kept humanity going through 5 years of isolation and siege flared to life. No, she said, her voice gaining strength. No, we're not going to let this happen. The Council's plan is insane, Harper, sacrificing countless species on the off chance it might save a chosen few. There has to be another way. Harper looked at her, a mix of hope and skepticism in his eyes. What are you suggesting? Samantha's mind was racing, ideas forming and connecting at lightning speed. We need to warn the galaxy. Not just about the Council, but about what's really coming. We need to unite every species, every civilization we can reach. Pool our knowledge, our technology, our unique perspectives. The Council will try to stop us, Harper warned. They'll see it as a threat to everything they've worked for. Let them try. Samantha's voice was steel. They've already shown us what they're capable of. But they've also shown us their limits. We've survived everything they've thrown at us so far. We'll survive this too. She turned to Harper, her eyes blazing with determination. We're going to need a ship, and we're going to need to adapt this Void Eater detection technology. If we can create a network of early warning systems, we might stand a chance, Harper finished, a smile breaking across his face. It's insane, Doctor, but it just might work. As they set to work, cannibalizing parts from their escape pods and the alien structure around them, Samantha felt a renewed sense of purpose. The threat they faced was beyond anything humanity had ever encountered, but that didn't mean they would succumb to despair. No, humanity would do what it had always done when faced with the impossible. They would adapt, they would innovate, and they would fight. Hours turned into days as Samantha and Harper worked tirelessly, piecing together a hybrid craft capable of interstellar travel and equipped with the alien detection technology. It wasn't pretty, and it certainly wasn't comfortable, but it would serve their purpose. As they made final preparations for launch, Samantha addressed their makeshift ship's rudimentary AI. Set course for the nearest non-council world. It's time to start building our coalition. The engines hummed to life, and the ship rose from the alien moon's surface. As they accelerated away, Samantha took one last look at the holographic display of the galaxy. The tendrils of the Void Eaters seemed to have crept closer, but now, instead of dread, she felt a fierce determination. "You hear that, you cosmic horrors," she murmured. "We're coming for you, and we're bringing the entire galaxy with us." As the ship leaked into FTL, carrying hope for a united galactic resistance, Samantha allowed herself a small smile. The real battle was just beginning, and humanity would be at the forefront, where they belonged. The bridge of the U.S. Unity hummed with tension as Dr. Samantha Chen gazed out at the vast armada stretching before her. Ships of all shapes and sizes, representing hundreds of species from across the galaxy, formed a defensive line that seemed to stretch into infinity. It had taken 5 grueling years, but they had done it. They had united the galaxy. "Status report," Samantha called out, her voice steady despite the weight of trillions of lives resting on her shoulders. "All ships report ready, Admiral," replied her XO, Commander Jack Harper. The title still felt strange to Samantha, but desperate times called for desperate measures, and humanity's experience in fighting against overwhelming odds had propelled her to the forefront of the galactic resistance. "The Void Eaters?" she asked, turning to the science station where Zara, now fully trusted and an integral part of the team, monitored the advanced detection grid they had reverse-engineered from the Council's technology. Zara's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with anxiety. "The incursion has begun, Samantha. They're breaching the galactic barrier in multiple sectors." Samantha nodded grimly. "And the shield?" "The galactic shield is holding at 98% efficiency," reported a Threxian engineer, his tentacles dancing over holographic controls. "But the strain is immense. We can't maintain it indefinitely." The galactic shield had been Samantha's brainchild, an adaptation of Earth's planetary shield scaled up to unimaginable proportions. It had taken the combined efforts of thousands of species, pooling their knowledge and resources, to make it a reality. But even this marvel of engineering had its limits. "It doesn't need to hold indefinitely," Samantha reminded them. "Just long enough. Long enough for their real plan to work. A plan so audacious, so quintessentially human, that it had initially been met with disbelief by their alien allies. But as they had learned over the years, underestimating humanity was a grave mistake. "Captain Chin," a gravelly voice rang out, and Samantha turned to face Admiral Skthar, a hive queen of the Vespid Collective. "The Council fleet approaches. They demand our surrender." A bitter laugh escaped Samantha's lips. Even now, with existence itself hanging in the balance, the Council clung to its misguided beliefs. "Put them on screen," she ordered. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the stern visage of High Counselor Xandros. His expression was a mixture of anger and desperation. "This is your final warning," Xandros declared. "Deactivate your shield and surrender your fleets. The Void Eaters can still be contained if we act now." Samantha stepped forward, her eyes blazing with determination. "Contained? By sacrificing trillions of innocent lives? No, Counselor, we have a better way." "You fool," Xandros spat. "You've doomed us all with your arrogance. Humanity should have been eradicated when we had the chance." "Perhaps," Samantha conceded. "But then you would have never discovered the one thing that might actually save us all." She nodded to Harper, who initiated a complex sequence of commands. Suddenly, the space around the Unity warped and twisted. A massive portal, large enough to swallow entire planets, began to form. Xandros' eyes widened in shock. "What have you done?" Samantha allowed herself a grim smile. "We opened a door, Counselor. A door to a realm where the laws of physics as we know them don't apply. Where the Void Eater's power means nothing." It had been the breakthrough of the century. By studying the Void Eater's own interdimensional travel methods, humanity and its allies had discovered a way to create stable wormholes to pocket dimensions, realms where they could set the rules. "All ships," Samantha broadcast to the entire fleet, "commence Operation Pied Piper. Draw them in." The Galactic Armada sprang into action. Ships darted forward, engaging the cosmic horrors that were now visible as vast, reality-warping abominations at the edge of the galaxy. But instead of attacking directly, they feinted and retreated, luring the Void Eaters toward the massive portal. "They're taking the bait," Harper reported, his voice tense with concentration. 80% of the Void Eater force is pursuing our fleet." Samantha nodded. It was working, but the cost was horrific. With each passing moment, more Allied ships winked out of existence, consumed by the eldritch abominations they were tasked with luring. "Counselor," Samantha turned back to the still open channel with Xandros. "I know we have our differences, but right now we need every ship we can get. Will you stand with us?" For a long moment, Xandros was silent, conflict evident on his alien features. Then, with a resigned sigh, he nodded. "All Council ships, engage the enemy. For the galaxy." As murmurs of agreement filled the room, Samantha allowed herself a small, fierce smile. The real war, she knew, was just beginning. But for the first time in 5 long years, the future held more than just survival. It held the promise of victory. The Prometheus hung in space, a sleek dagger of hope against the vast, star-studded backdrop. From her position on the bridge, Dr. Samantha Chen watched as the last of the supply shuttles docked with the ship. After months of preparation, years of planning, it was finally time. "Final systems check," she ordered, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "All systems green, Doctor," replied Commander Jack Harper, his hands dancing over the holographic controls. "Stealth systems are online and functioning at 100% efficiency." Samantha nodded, allowing herself a small smile. The luminary cloaking technology, combined with human ingenuity, had produced a vessel that was virtually undetectable. It was their key to slipping past the Council's blockade. "Zara," she called out, turning to where the luminary sat at the science station. "Are you picking up any Council activity?" Zara's bioluminescent patterns pulsed softly as she checked her readings. "Negative, Samantha. The Council fleet maintains its standard patrol pattern around the shield perimeter." "Good," Samantha said. "Then it's time. Jack, initiate Operation Wooden Horse." As Harper began the launch sequence, Samantha's mind wandered back to the heated debates that had led to this moment. Some had argued for a direct assault on the Council ships, to break the blockade by force. Others had pushed for a purely diplomatic mission, seeking out allies before engaging the enemy. In the end, Samantha's plan had won out. A daring infiltration of the Council's main fleet, gathering intelligence, and potentially sabotaging their operations from within. It was risky, but if successful, it could turn the tide of the war before it even properly began. The ship shuddered slightly as it passed through the carefully calculated gap in Earth's planetary shield. For a heart-stopping moment, Samantha feared they'd be spotted. But the seconds ticked by, and no alarm sounded. "We're clear," Harper announced, a note of disbelief in his voice. "We've done it. We're past the blockade." A cheer went up from the crew, quickly hushed as they remembered the need for absolute silence. Samantha allowed the celebration for a moment before bringing them back to focus. "Well done, everyone," she said. "But remember, this is just the beginning. Set course for the Arcturus system. That's where we'll find the Council's main fleet." As the Prometheus leaped into FTL, leaving the solar system for the first time in 5 years, Samantha felt a mix of exhilaration and trepidation. They were bringing the fight to the enemy at last, but the true challenges were yet to come. The journey to Arcturus took 3 days, during which the crew drilled constantly on their infiltration procedures. The plan was audacious. Using salvaged parts from Zara's ship and the advanced manufacturing capabilities of the Prometheus, they had constructed a near-perfect replica of a Council vessel's outer hull. Once in the Arcturus system, they would cloak the Prometheus, eject the fake hull, and appear to be a damaged Council ship limping home for repairs. As they dropped out of FTL on the outskirts of the Arcturus system, Samantha addressed the crew one final time. "What we're about to do has never been attempted," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the ship. "We're about to infiltrate the heart of the organization that tried to wipe us out. The risks are enormous, but so are the potential rewards. If we succeed, we'll have struck a blow for every species the Council has ever betrayed." She paused, looking each crew member in the eye. "You're the best Earth has to offer. You've trained for this, prepared for this. I have faith in each and every one of you. Now, let's show the Council exactly what humanity is capable of." With a chorus of affirmatives, the crew sprang into action. The fake hull was ejected, the Prometheus cloaked, and they began their approach to the massive Council fleet that hung in orbit around Arcturus IV. Everything was going according to plan. Too well, Samantha thought, a nagging sense of unease growing in the pit of her stomach. As they neared the fleet, a Council battlecruiser hailed them. Harper, disguised as a Council officer, answered the call. "Vessel CTN 2811, you are not scheduled for return," came the stern voice of the Council commander. "Explain your presence, Harper delivered their prepared story flawlessly, describing a malfunction that had forced them to cut their patrol short. For a moment, it seemed the ruse had worked. Then, suddenly, alarms blared throughout the Prometheus. "We're being scanned," Zara cried out, her bioluminescence flashing in panic.